Hi everyone, it's Gail here. Good afternoon. I'm all wrapped up today because it's freezing. So it's sunny outside, but it's definitely not warm. It's maybe marginally warmer than it was, but I am just frozen. And um, my husband just said, "Oh, I think we should, put the heating on a bit later." I'm like, "I don't think so. It's freezing," because I work in a conservatory area which is all glass. And so there's no insulation. So if it's cold, it's freezing. So I normally have a little heater on, which I did have on for a little while, but I've turned it off because the central heating has come on. Although I'm actually wondering if my husband has actually secretly turned it off again because it is not very warm. But anyway, how are we? I don't know if anybody's going to join me live today. We will see what happens. But today I am talking about presenting with confidence because it's the start of a new month. So it's the 1st of April today. It's April Fool's Day. And that means that I am covering a new topic. I guess in general, I mean, the topic really is for my free group, but when I think about the theme or the topic for the month, it kind of covers everything that I do that month, so that I've got a sort of central theme that everything I'm thinking about, the content that I'm putting out, the things I'm talking about, it keeps everything nice and consistent and makes it easier for me to think of what to say about things as well. And so today I thought I would share with you a tip. I guess it is a tip, but it's something for you to think about when you are presenting, because one of the things that I hear from people all the time is that they hate standing up in front of people, they hate speaking in public, they get nervous when they've got to do an important presentation, if they're speaking in front of stakeholders, executive presence. That was always a big thing for me. And ironically, I teach presentation skills now, which I say it is ironic because, it's something that I've struggled with over the years as well. But I have learned a lot about how to present with confidence, about how to deliver, a good presentation that makes sense, that's easy to follow, and that I guess hits the mark and really thinks about what's the outcome you're trying to get to, what's the story you're trying to tell, what is the action you want people to take as a result of the presentation. And I've also been through my own not my own version, but I've been trained on how to deliver this. And I remember, or how to deliver presentations. And I remember when I was at Adobe going through quite a brutal presentation skills training over a couple of days, where we had to do the presenting. We were all videoed. We got critiqued by the facilitator. We had to watch back the videos and cringe. Never used to like doing that. And then do it all again. So take the critique on board, watch the video, and then think about, okay, so what needs to be changed as a result of what we have been learning. And I have to say that whilst it was brutal and uncomfortable at the time, it did make a difference. It did make a difference to my delivery and how I get a message across, and in particular, I guess my confidence at being able to do it. Because I think sometimes, for me anyway, and I think this is true for a lot of people, sometimes that lack of confidence can just be because you feel like you don't know what to do, or you've not mastered the technique, or nobody's shown you the way. And we do tend to compare ourselves all the time, right? So I always say comparison is the thief of joy. And one thing that will definitely make you feel uncomfortable when you're thinking about getting up and presenting is if you are comparing yourself to other people that have maybe mastered this skill already, are already really good at it, already really comfortable, already coming at it with swagger, already delivering really impactful presentations, maybe keynote speakers, TED talkers. And when you're kind of just starting to get to grips with this yourself, you can quite easily give yourself a really high bar to hit and put yourself under an immense amount of pressure to get it pitch perfect. And what the one thing that I've learned is, it doesn't really matter if you mess up. Obviously, the more important the presentation is, the higher the stakes, the more you want to get it right, and the more you don't want to mess up. But even in a high stakes presentation, I think sometimes if you remember that you're human and everyone else in the room is human, that can make a difference. And I've certainly learned that when I mess up, if I make a mistake, I try not to panic about it. I try and laugh about it. I try and just make a thing out of it. Because one thing is for sure, if you are uncomfortable, the audience watching you is going to be super uncomfortable as well. Because as audience members, so when we are in the audience, if we are on the receiving end of a presentation, and it's true for any performance. I used to do amateur dramatics as well, so I kind of know a little bit about performing too. And with any performance, no matter what you do, even if you mess up, even if you get it wrong, as long as you do it with confidence, audiences are generally pretty forgiving, and they do generally want you to do well, and they want to go with you. And the last thing you want to do, if you are suffering with a little bit of, worrying about getting it wrong or maybe feeling uncomfortable, is to make that really obvious to the audience. Because if you're on stage, say, delivering a presentation, or standing up in front of a room of people delivering a presentation, and it's obvious to them that you feel uncomfortable, you can rest assured they're going to feel uncomfortable. Okay, so you've all had that feeling when you've been watching somebody delivering something or presenting something, and you're sitting there, okay, you just you see them mess up, you see how uncomfortable they are, you see how nervous they are, and you immediately, most people anyway, because we empathize, most people are sitting there going, oh, this is uncomfortable because the person up there feels uncomfortable. And I'm not saying it's easy, okay? This is a skill that needs to be practiced and mastered. With anything that you want to get good at, you've got to practice, you've got to prepare, and you just you need to keep going. So if you do something and you mess up, doesn't mean that you can never do it again and get it and not be able to master it. So you need to kind of you need to keep going, and you need to master the skill of presenting and find your own style and find your own voice. But those are all conversations for another day. What I really wanted to get into today was one thing that you can do that will really make a difference when you think about presenting. And so the question I have for you, so I know a couple of people are watching me live right now. So if you are live, it would be great if you could put a little comment in. Just let me know that you're here. Who is here? Say hello. Just give me a little wave, or let me know who you are, where you are, what you're up to, how your day is going. Is it freezing where you are? Are you basking in glorious sunshine and heat? Because it's definitely not like that here. So I've got my insulation on here, my handy cardy. Yeah, let me know if you're watching live. That would be great. Just drop me a little comment so that I know who is tuning in. And if you're watching this back on replay, #replay, so that I know that you caught this. So my one thing for you, when you're thinking about presenting, so I always have this question. So when I'm teaching how to present with confidence, I always have a question for the room, and I always do this early on. So I always ask, so I say I do this early on. It's usually I do this early on when I'm talking to people about structuring their presentation, and when they're thinking about planning their presentation, thinking about the content, what they're going to cover, what's important to go in, what's the message. So I always ask this question: what is the most important thing about your presentation? What's the most important thing about your presentation? And I don't even get to that bit actually until we address fear and emotion, stage fright, how people feel when they're getting up to talk on stage or in front of a group of, in front of a large audience. It seems to be the thing of standing up. It seems a little bit easier when you stay sitting, but when you stand up to speak, that's when we feel more exposed, we get more nervous, the stakes seem higher, it seems to just put a little bit more emphasis and pressure on us. So the first thing that I do actually when I'm teaching presentation skills is we get into that whole area and we talk about the saboteur and how we self-sabotage and how we put ourselves under pressure. So I cover all of that first, but then the next thing I do is I talk about, okay, let's talk about structuring a presentation. So what is the most important thing that you need to be thinking about when you are structuring your presentation? And at that point, I'll usually go around the room and invite some thoughts on that. And, quite often we'll get things like, you need to think about your slides. You need to think about the content, images, what are some of the things that you want to say? How do you want to say it? You need to rehearse, you need to practice, all these things, and all these things are important. And, they're definitely things that you should be considering. But I don't consider them to be the most important thing. They are all important, but they're not the most important thing. So for me, when I am thinking about delivering a presentation, the most important thing for me is the audience, because they're the reason that you're there. And I know certainly from doing Amdram, so in my Amdram days, being on stage in Edinburgh, whoever was directing at the time, I have one director in mind in particular for this, I'm not sure why, but I have her voice in my head when I think about this. She would always say, who are the paying, where are the paying people? The people that are paying to come and see you, they don't want to see the back of your head. They don't, so this is like thinking about stagecraft and stage positioning and, where you are and where you're speaking and, that whole thing and where is your attention and focus being placed. But whether you're on stage performing or you're delivering a presentation, the essence is the same, because ultimately the reason that you are there is because of the audience. You are there to deliver a message and influence the audience. And that is the thing that's really important. You're there to influence them. And usually, I guess not in all cases, but usually you are there to influence the audience to take action. Now, this is particularly true if you're in sales, if you are trying to pitch something, you're trying to get somebody to buy something from you. But ultimately, when we're presenting, we're usually trying to get people to take action, to change something, to do something as a result of your presentation. And when we're trying to influence people, it doesn't matter whether we're presenting to them, whether we're talking to them, whether we're just in regular conversation with them. When we're trying to influence, your attention always needs to be on the audience and on what is important to the audience. So not just thinking about who the audience are, but thinking about who they are, what roles they're likely to have, and what they're likely to be concerned with, what matters most to them. Because if you can get intimately aware of that, so if you can really hone in and know and understand who your audience are, then everything else, slides, pitch, content, whatever you're planning to put into the presentation, everything else can be tailored and targeted towards your audience. And that means that when your audience are listening, they're going to feel like you are talking specifically to them, like you understand them, like you know them, like they can trust you, like you are speaking their language. And when you can do that, then all good things happen following on from that. So my big tip for you, my big suggestion, especially if you are someone who gets nervous about speaking in public or doesn't like presenting or feels uncomfortable when you're asked to deliver something, my big tip for you is, whether it's a room of 2 people or a room of 2,000 people or more, right? If you're doing keynotes, it might even be more than that, but whether it's 2 people or 2,000 people, the more that you can find out about your audience, to know and understand what matters to them, what makes them tick, what's likely to be going through their mind, what their biases are, what their filters are, what they're motivated by, what they care about, all of those things, the more that you can know and understand that, the more that you can do your homework around that, the more relevant you will be, the more engaging. And obviously, when you find out all this information, you have to build it in. Okay, so you then need to tailor your message accordingly. But the more relevant you will be, the more engaging you will be, and the more your audience will relate to you. And thinking about relatability and the human factor, always important to remember that we are all people, we are all humans, and so we all have commonality, at least at that level. Like we are all human beings. And so remember that when you're presenting, remember that the people you're presenting to are just people, because when you put them on a pedestal, right, that just adds pressure, it just layers pressure on that we don't need. So the more that you can think of your audience as regular people that have hopes, fears, dreams, desires in the same way that you do, the more comfortable you're likely to be, because we are all human. We're all human. So that's my big tip for you today, is really hone in on who am I presenting to, why am I presenting to them, and what do they care about? Because it comes down to advocacy. If you're advocating for something, if you're pitching for something, if you ultimately want people to do something as a result of your presentation, which that's usually underlying a presentation somewhere, what is it that you want them to do? Why do you want them to do it? And why do they care about it? What matters to them about what it is that you're trying to do? And the more that you can get intimately under the hood with who is going to be listening to you, the more relevant and relatable you'll be, and the more successful you will be with your message. So that's the thing. So really get to know and understand your audience. Even if it's a room of 2,000 people, what sort of people? Because if it's a conference, there's usually, if it's a conference or a big event, or there's usually some sort of commonality between the people. They're not usually all completely different. Yes, they're going to be different people. Everybody has their own biases. Everybody is unique. But what is the common ground, and how can you be thinking about what matters to them and catering any presentation that you're doing to them so that they feel like you're speaking directly to them, and more importantly, what they care about. That's what's important. So have a think about that the next time you're doing a presentation, and let me know how that goes. And if this is a theme that's of interest to you, so presenting with confidence, that is the theme that I'm covering in my free group this month. So starting today in April. So I've already put a little post in there just to try and get some insight into how do people feel about presenting? Where are you on the presenting scale? Are you someone who sees that as what was it I said in my group today? What was it I said? Was it I can't remember now what I called it. I think I said something about it being a necessary evil. I think that's what I called it. So do you see it as a necessary evil, or are you someone who, for you, presenting is your life and you just can't wait to get your next gig? Or maybe you're more of the, it's fine, but I'd like to do it better. I'd like to be a bit more confident around how I do it. Or is there something else going on for you? So when what comes up for you when you think about presenting? So that's what I'm covering today in my free group. Obviously, depending on when you're watching this back, if you're watching on replay or if you're watching this in the vault, it won't be today anymore. But today, the 1st of April, that is what we're talking about in my free group. So do feel free to come in and join the conversation. And if you're not sure where that is, because I haven't put a link in here for that, if you're not sure where that is, let me know. But the other thing that is happening this in the coming 7 days, so a week, not a week today, so it was a week yesterday. So on Wednesday next week in my free group, I have an amazing guest coming in. So Stephen Webster, who I used to work with at Adobe and is someone who has loads of experience being a keynote speaker. I've seen him present a few times and he is a master at this. He's going to be coming in and joining me to have a conversation about presenting with confidence in my group next week. And you are welcome to come along and watch that. So you just need to be in the group to listen to that. And again, so that's going to be on the 7th of April. So if you're watching this after the 7th of April, you will have missed it, but it will be available on replay. So you just need to pop along to the group and you'll be able to do that. So that is it from me today. I hope you're enjoying the 1st of April and you haven't had any April Fool's pranks played on you. And I look forward to seeing you soon. So I know somebody is still watching me. I have no clue who it is, but that is okay. Don't see any comments. But have a great rest of the day and I will speak to you soon. Take care. Bye.